It was a quiet evening, and I was sitting on the couch, lost in the soft glow of the television. The world felt calm for a moment, a rare escape from the chaos of my daily life. But that peace shattered when my husband stormed through the door, his face already clouded with anger. His mother, my mother-in-law, followed closely behind, her lips curled into a whisper I couldn't hear. Whatever she said, it ignited something in him. His eyes darkened with rage, and before I could process what was happening, he shouted, "Why are you wasting time?" His voice was like a thunderclap, shaking me to my core. Then, in a moment I'll never forget, he grabbed the television, my father's gift to me, and smashed it over my head. Pain exploded through my skull, and I crumpled to the floor, blood trickling down my face. Dazed and terrified, I begged for help, my voice trembling. "Please, I'm hurt." But my pleas fell on deaf ears. Instead, he grabbed me by my hair, dragging me across the room like I was nothing. He threw me out into the cold night, the door slamming shut behind me. Shaking, alone, and bleeding, I stood on the doorstep of what was supposed to be my home, my heart pounding with disbelief. Desperate, I fumbled for my phone and called my brother, Daniel. When he answered, his voice was sharp with concern. "What's wrong? Where are you?" I could barely speak through my sobs, but I managed to choke out, "I need help, Daniel. Please." He was there in what felt like an eternity, but was likely only minutes. What followed was more terrifying than I could have ever imagined, a nightmare that would unravel the life I thought I knew. This is my story, a story of love that turned to betrayal, of pain that tested my limits, and of finding strength I didn't know I had. 3 years ago, if you'd told me I'd be sitting here, recounting this horror, I'd have laughed in disbelief. But life, as I've learned, has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it, doesn't it? It all began with a chance meeting that felt like fate. I was 26, living in Seattle, working as a graphic designer for a small creative firm. My life was simple, steady, predictable, and filled with the small joys of a young woman building her future. Then I met Jonathan Carter, a 30-year-old banker with a smile that could light up the darkest room. He was charming, polished, and well-spoken, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the world when he spoke to you. Our romance was a whirlwind, a blur of candlelit dinners at upscale restaurants, leisurely walks along the Seattle waterfront, and late-night conversations about our dreams and aspirations. He made me feel seen, valued, and loved in a way I'd never experienced before. 6 months later, when he dropped to one knee and proposed, my heart soared. I said yes without a moment's hesitation, swept up in the magic of it all. My friends called us the perfect couple, and I believed them. We seemed destined for a fairy tale life. But as I've come to learn, perfection is often a facade, hiding cracks that only reveal themselves when it's too late. After our wedding, we settled into a beautiful house in one of Seattle's quieter neighborhoods. It was a charming place, with a wraparound porch and a garden I dreamed of filling with flowers. At first, it felt like a dream come true. I threw myself into making our house a home, cooking Jonathan's favorite meals, decorating with care, and ensuring everything was just right. He worked long hours at the bank, and though I missed him during the day, I told myself it was all part of building our future together. I was determined to be the perfect wife, to create a life we could both be proud of. But then, just a few months after the wedding, Jonathan's mother, Patricia, moved in with us. She claimed she was there to help, but it didn't take long to see her true intentions. Patricia was in her late 50s, a retired schoolteacher with a commanding presence and a knack for control. She had opinions on everything, how I should run the household, what I should wear, even the meals I cooked for Jonathan. At first, I tried to win her over. After all, she was my husband's mother, and I wanted to build a family with her in it. I listened politely when she called me too modern or criticized my housekeeping skills. I smiled through her endless suggestions, hoping to keep the peace. But no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. Worse, Jonathan began siding with her. "Mom's just trying to help," he'd say when I voiced my frustrations. "She knows what she's talking about. You should listen to her." His words stung, cutting deeper each time. I told myself it was just a phase, that things would get better if I tried harder. But deep down, I felt the ground shifting beneath me, and I wasn't sure how to stop it. One evening, after an exhausting day of chores, I collapsed onto the couch to watch TV. It was a small comfort, a way to unwind and escape the tension that had become my daily reality. The TV had been a gift from my father, who passed away a year before the wedding. Watching it always brought back warm memories of him, his laughter, his kindness, the way he'd always believed in me. That night, as I sat there, I felt a pang of longing for him, wishing he were still here to guide me through the storm my life was becoming. Jonathan came home late, his face weary but familiar. For a fleeting moment, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe we could have a peaceful evening, just the two of us. But then Patricia appeared, whispering something in his ear. Whatever she said changed him instantly. His eyes turned cold, his jaw tightened. "Get up," he snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. "Go to the kitchen and make me a fresh meal." I blinked, stunned. "Jonathan, dinner's already ready." "I kept it warm for you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But he wasn't having it. "I don't want that," he barked. "I want something fresh. Now." I hesitated, exhaustion weighing me down. "Jonathan, I've been on my feet all day. Can't you just—" Before I could finish, he exploded. "How dare you talk back to me?" he roared. In a flash, he strode across the room, grabbed the TV, my father's TV, and lifted it above his head. Time seemed to slow as I realized what was about to happen. I didn't have time to move, to scream, to react. He hurled the TV down, and the corner of it smashed into the side of my head. Pain erupted, white-hot and blinding. I crumpled to the floor, blood trickling down my temple, my vision swimming. "Maybe this will teach you to obey me," he growled, towering over me. Patricia stood nearby, her arms crossed, a smug expression on her face. "You don't deserve to live here if you can't respect us," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. I begged for help, my voice weak and trembling. "Jonathan, please, I'm hurt." But neither of them cared. Instead, Jonathan grabbed me again, dragging me to the door and shoving me out into the cold, dark night. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone, bleeding and shaking with nowhere to go. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed Daniel. As soon as he answered, I broke down, sobbing into the receiver. "Jonathan, I need help, Daniel. Please." His voice was sharp with worry. "Where are you?" "I'm coming to get you right now." I gave him my location, my voice barely audible, and waited in the darkness, my mind a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. How had my life come to this? How had the man I loved become a monster? When Daniel arrived, his face was a storm of anger and worry. He helped me into his car, his hands gentle but his eyes blazing with fury. "We're going to the hospital," he said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "I promise you, we're going to fix this. He's not going to get away with this." At the hospital, as the doctor cleaned my wound and stitched me up, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in months, a spark of hope flickered. I realized I didn't have to endure this anymore. But I also knew this was just the beginning. Jonathan and Patricia had betrayed me in ways I couldn't ignore, and I was determined to make them pay. In the days that followed, I stayed with Daniel, trying to piece myself back together. The physical pain was sharp, but the emotional wounds cut deeper. One night, as we sat in his apartment, I poured out everything: Patricia's relentless control, Jonathan's growing coldness, and the horrifying moment he attacked me. Daniel listened, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. "He's a monster," he said, his voice low but seething with rage. "And his mother is no better. You can't go back there ever." "I know," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "But what can I do? They've made it clear I don't belong there. I don't even have my belongings." Daniel's eyes softened, but his resolve was firm. "Forget your things. What matters is your safety. We'll figure out the rest, but first, we're going to make sure they pay for what they've done to you." That's when I decided I wanted more than just to leave Jonathan. I wanted justice. I wanted to expose him for who he really was. "He's hiding something," I told Daniel, my voice trembling but resolute. He's always been secretive about his work, late nights, unexplained phone calls. It doesn't add up. Daniel nodded, his eyes narrowing. You might be onto something. If he's hiding something, we'll find it. Let's dig deeper. We hired a private investigator named Jack Lewis, a seasoned professional with a reputation for uncovering the truth. When we met with Jack, I laid out my suspicions about Jonathan's activities at the bank. Jack listened carefully, taking detailed notes. I'll start investigating immediately, he promised. The waiting was agonizing. Every day, I wondered what he would uncover, torn between fear that I was overreacting and a gut feeling that something dark lurked beneath Jonathan's polished exterior. 2 weeks later, Jack called. I found something, he said, his tone serious. Can we meet in person? My heart pounded as Daniel and I drove to his office. When we sat down, Jack laid out the evidence he'd gathered, and it was worse than I could have imagined. Jonathan wasn't just a controlling husband, he was a criminal. He had been embezzling money from the bank, laundering it through fake accounts, and funneling it into offshore holdings. Jack showed us documents, account statements, and surveillance photos. The evidence was undeniable. I stared at the files, my mind reeling. I knew he was hiding something, I said softly, but this is huge. Daniel's voice was filled with determination. We're taking this to the authorities. Jack nodded. You should, but be careful. People like him don't react well when they're cornered. A chill ran down my spine, but I knew he was right. Jonathan was dangerous, and this was no longer just about me. His actions had harmed others, and I couldn't let him continue. The next day, Daniel and I went to the police with Jack's evidence. Detective Rebecca Hayes, the officer assigned to the case, listened carefully as we laid everything out. This is solid, she said, flipping through the files. We'll start an investigation immediately. Leaving the station, I felt a mix of emotions, fear, relief, and a strange sense of empowerment. For so long, I had felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. But now I was fighting back, and for the first time, I believed I might win. A week later, Detective Hayes called us back to the station. We've made significant progress, she said, her expression serious but determined. Thanks to your investigators' evidence, we've confirmed that Jonathan is involved in a large-scale money laundering operation. He's been embezzling funds for over 2 years, using shell companies to cover his tracks. The scope of his crimes is massive. My breath caught in my throat. I had suspected he was hiding something, but the extent of his betrayal was staggering. What happens now? I asked, my voice shaky. We've built a strong case against him, Detective Hayes replied. We're monitoring his movements and preparing to make an arrest. But you need to be careful. Once he realizes the net is closing in, he might try to contact you, or worse. I nodded, gripping the edge of my chair. I won't let him get to me, I said, though deep down, I was terrified. Finally, the call came. Detective Hayes informed us that Jonathan had been taken into custody that morning. He didn't resist, she said, her tone calm but firm, but he's claiming innocence, saying it's all a misunderstanding. Of course he is, I said bitterly. That's what he's always done, pretend to be the victim. Despite his denial, knowing he was behind bars gave me a sense of safety I hadn't felt in months. The trial was daunting. The courtroom, with its towering ceilings and stern atmosphere, felt like a battleground. I sat with Daniel, squeezing his hand for support as Jonathan was brought in. He looked calm, almost smug, as if he believed he could charm his way out of this. But as the prosecution presented the evidence, the documents, the surveillance photos, the investigator's testimony, I saw his confidence falter. When it was my turn to testify, my legs shook as I walked to the stand, but my heart was steady. I recounted everything, the abuse, the lies, the night he hit me with the TV. My voice wavered at times, but I didn't stop. I refused to let him silence me again. Jonathan's defense tried to paint me as a bitter ex-wife seeking revenge, but the evidence was overwhelming. By the time the trial concluded, it was clear to everyone in the courtroom that he was guilty. The judge's verdict was swift. Jonathan was convicted on multiple counts of embezzlement, money laundering, and fraud. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. When the gavel struck, a wave of relief washed over me. He couldn't hurt me anymore. For the first time in years, I felt free to live, to dream, and to rebuild my life on my own terms. After the trial, I stepped outside the courthouse with Daniel, the sun warm on my face. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You stood up to him." I nodded, my throat tight. "I couldn't have done it without you," I said. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of healing and rediscovery. I moved into a small apartment in downtown Seattle, a modest one-bedroom with creaky floors and a tiny kitchen. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a space free from Jonathan's shadow. I poured myself into my work, taking on bigger design projects and rediscovering my passion for creativity. Slowly, I began to rebuild my confidence, proving to myself that I was capable, strong, and worthy. Daniel remained my rock, always there with a kind word or a shared laugh. One evening, as we sat down for dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant, we raised our glasses in a toast. "To your freedom," he said, smiling. "To my freedom," I echoed, a genuine smile spreading across my face. It was a moment of peace, a reminder that I had survived. As I sit here now, sharing this story, I realize how far I've come. What happened to me was horrific, but it didn't break me. It taught me that I deserve better, that I have a voice, and that I have the right to stand up for myself. Most importantly, it showed me that no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way out. Jonathan thought he could control me forever, but he underestimated me. He underestimated the strength I had buried deep inside. Now, as I look to the future, I know one thing for certain: I'm free. Free to live, to dream, and to build a life on my own terms. That, to me, is the greatest revenge of all. And to anyone listening who feels trapped, who feels like there's no way out, I want you to know this: you are stronger than you realize. You have a voice, and you have the power to change your story. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.